she's a speaker. That's Emma. This is Billy with the ACLU.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And Candidata's on our team, Director of Engagement. Jamie works at the U at the Research Center. And Kevin Cross is on our team. Jason, that's Keilani. Keilani, this is our board member, Emma. And Valentino's a secretary. Yeah. Do you want to stand? No. I don't want you to be blocked by the podium, so somewhere visible. Like, are you visible there?
There you go.
Yeah. Do you want to just kind of fill it in and make it diagonal? Yeah. Like that? Okay.
You tell what breeds fast.
I'm going to do a quick sound check.
We're still just waiting for one more speaker to come, so I'll give it a minute before I welcome everybody. All right. Good afternoon. I'm Annabelle Scheinberg. I'm the VP of External Affairs with Planned Parenthood Association of Utah and Planned Parenthood Action Council of Utah. I'm here today with members of our Repro Roundtable to talk about how HB 467 will impact Utahns. I want to thank all the members of the press who are attending and our supporters as well. The Repro Roundtable is a convening of Utah-based individuals and organizations who are committed to intersecting aspects of sexual, reproductive, health, rights, and justice. I want to say about the bill that restricting rights for nearly 3,300 Utahns who access abortion care makes people who can get pregnant second-class Utahns. Today is the first day of Women's History Month, and Black History Month ended yesterday. Policies like HB 467 impact women and people who can get pregnant differently based on our identities. We know that BIPOC people, people with disabilities, people who lack access to transportation or have limited ability to travel due to their family situation or employment will be harmed by this bill. As James Baldwin said, history is not the past, it's the present. We carry our history with us. We are our history. So today you're going to hear from people who are making history, a public health researcher, a local CEO, a director and filmmaker, a storyteller, an advocate, and the ACLU of Utah. Thank you so much for listening. We'll have 6 short speakers now, and then there will be time for questions at the end. So to kick it off, our first speaker is Jason Stevenson, Policy Director with Planned Parenthood Action Council of Utah.
Thank you and good afternoon. I'm Jason Stevenson, a Policy Director at the Planned Parenthood Action Council of Utah. One of the most impactful bills that we've seen this session on healthcare is HB 467, Abortion Changes, sponsored by Carrie Ann Lisenby, representative from Davis County. This bill could effectively end abortion access in Utah, except in narrow and extreme circumstances. Meanwhile, statewide polling consistently shows that Utahns don't want more abortion restrictions, and they don't want Utah lawmakers limiting how their medical professionals provide care. This bill does both in both sweeping and dramatic ways. First, HB 467 adds new and unnecessary barriers to abortion care by requiring that all abortions take place in hospitals, a limitation that is both unnecessary and logistically impossible. Most hospitals in Utah don't provide abortions now, except in rare exceptions, and hospitals and doctors can refuse to provide these abortions, forcing patients to travel from place to place searching for care. In addition to making abortion care less accessible by going to hospitals, forcing people there increases the cost up to $15,000 to $20,000 for each case for the same procedures that can be performed for 10 times less that are equally safe at existing health centers right now. Second, HB 467 prohibits the new licensing of abortion clinics starting May 3rd and forces any clinic to stop providing abortions when their existing license expires. However, the hospital-only restriction of this bill would stop these clinics from providing abortions anyway on May 3rd. Third, HB 467 adds new unprofessional conduct penalties for Utah doctors if they perform an abortion contrary to the law. These accusations against doctors can be made by anyone. Fourth, HB 467 limits abortion access for survivors of rape and incest up to 18 weeks gestation, while maintaining the existing law enforcement reporting requirements. Finally, this bill will likely disrupt the existing trigger ban litigation. What I just described were the known aspects of HB 467. However, this bill, which is over 1,000 lines long, also raises many questions about how Utahns will access this essential care going forward. For example, how will hospitals handle the more than 3,000 patients who need abortion care each year in Utah? Where can patients go to receive care if their local hospitals and doctors refuse to provide it, which Utah law allows them to do? How will Utahns afford the $10,000 to $20,000 cost, a much higher cost of an abortion at a hospital? And who will operate the new hospital-like clinics that HB 467 anticipates will open? As you can see, HB 467 is not just bad policy, it's dangerous policy that hurts patients, providers, and Utah's reputation as a safe place to start a family. Our next speaker is Jasmine Charles, a medical provider and clinical director at the SuperRad Specialty Prenatal Clinic at the University of Utah.
Thank you, Jason, and good afternoon. As Jason said, my name is Jasmine Charles. I'm a physician assistant by licensure, and I've practiced for 10 years. I spent my first 5 years in practice at the community health centers, caring for marginalized and underserved population, mostly of non-English speakers and many of them undocumented, and the majority of them uninsured. The last 5 years, I've started an adventure as the co-founder and the clinical director of SuperRad, the Substance Use in Pregnancy Recovery Addiction Dependence Clinic. Myself and my team of 25 care for women who are in active substance use disorder or a history of substance use disorder, or in all honesty at risk for substance use disorder. Anyone who feels that they need to be welcomed within our team is welcome to our care. It also includes, for me, caring for every incarcerated Utahn who is pregnant. So I do care for individuals at the prison and at the jail. This has been my journey for the last 6 years. Previous to this part of my life, I was a domestic violence advocate, caring for women in migrant farm working communities and also in the greater Seattle area. I want to talk a little bit about House Bill 467 and its effect on patients and individuals. But first, I want to remind you all that we're all here for the same reason. When we come up to the legislative floor, we're here to make a better Utah. We're here to offer people the opportunity for a better life and to open new doors and to have access. House Bill 467 is limiting access to all Utahns who access reproductive care. That particularly includes the women that I care for, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about how that could happen. Specifically with the rape reporting requirements, it makes it harder for my colleagues. We're already overworked and overburdened, and now we're asked to confirm more paperwork and provide more information. But in addition, when I provide trauma-informed care to a woman, that does not mean she comes through the door and immediately tells me she's been in a sexual assault situation. It can take up to 4 or 5 visits with that individual before they're comfortable telling me where they come from, who they go home to, that they don't go home to a home, that their children have been taken from them before, or that they are in need of abortion care because they don't have access to health care or access to housing, or because it was a result of a rape or an incest. So for the need to have a law report in addition, when a woman doesn't even feel comfortable with someone who's comfortable providing trauma-informed care, really creates a barrier. In addition, with the closure of abortion clinics, that doesn't just mean we'd be closing doors for abortions. We'd be closing doors for access to reproductive health care, and to be honest, we'd be closing doors to some of the best care I have ever seen. The reproductive health care provided within our abortion clinics, which are not just abortion clinics, is above and beyond health care. And my colleagues that I work alongside up at the university are amazing at what they do, but they are specialized in other things, and they are not specialized in abortion care. I think of my individuals who come miles to see me or see me on telemedicine from rural Utah, or in all honesty from inside the walls of the incarceration system, who could no longer access medication-assisted abortions because they have to receive it within a hospital setting. And to be perfectly honest, not only does it have to be in a hospital setting, but it now would also state that it has to be by a physician. I will remind you, I am not a licensed physician. I am a licensed physician assistant. I provide care to hundreds of individuals, and this bill will limit my ability to care for women. I have women who can't come through the door of any clinic, to be perfectly honest, because they are too afraid. They're afraid of trauma they have received within healthcare. They're afraid of things that have happened to them within healthcare settings. Or they're afraid that they may be found or uncovered because of maybe legal implications. I spend a few nights a week with a mobile healthcare team and also with a harm reduction team on the streets, seeing individuals who already are not accessing healthcare, who can't even afford to access healthcare within clinics that can provide them abortion services at a cost of as low as $250. I'm not sure how many of the individuals that I've cared for over the years could ever come up with $10,000 to $20,000 for hospital care. I'll remind you again that it's not just the marginalized and the low-income individuals who will struggle to access care. There are plenty of us with access to health care, with access to a vehicle, who work 8 to 5 jobs, who can't get to a healthcare setting within the regular hours. Clinical care and telemedicine care is imperative to our care. Individuals who would have to travel and already do travel miles to receive abortion care may not be able to travel that additional distance to a hospital. And stories that I've heard of individuals who arrive within a hospital setting for care, and because the laws are constantly changing and are so confusing, my fellow healthcare colleagues are too afraid to provide any care because we're not sure what's going to be called a felony or what's going to incarcerate ourselves. Then we'll turn individuals away from care because their understanding is you can only be cared for in 1 or 2 specific places or by 1 or 2 specific people. Healthcare is a health equity, and healthcare is a life equity. I went to school because I wanted to take care of everyone. Before I went to school to be a PA, my goal was to take care of everyone. It is absolutely disheartening to think that the legislation could take away from me my right to care for everyone. Please remember and think about the people that you love that have needed access to health care, and not just abortion care, but health care that is hard to access. And remember, even for yourself, navigating health care. I'll tell you, as a healthcare provider, even when I have to help advocate and navigate health care for myself or a family member that's outside of my realm, it's really uncomfortable. And then I think back to the individuals that I serve every day and how they don't even speak the healthcare language to start with. So understanding where to go, and when hearing in the press that we're closing for abortions, for many individuals, they think that means we're closing the clinic altogether. That's their access to contraception. That's our access to sexually transmitted infection treatment, which is a healthcare crisis in and of itself, and something that our health department in our state really cares about. So please, when you're thinking about this bill and about what it's doing, think about how it affects every single one of us, because I know that we all like to go home and think that it doesn't affect us, but every one of us will be affected in one way or another, whether that be a trickle down, or in all honesty, it's probably someone close to you who may not have ever had the comfort to open up and talk to you about the experiences they've been through. Thank you.
Thank you. So my name's Jess Sanders. I am a reproductive health researcher and a member of the Repro Roundtable. In December of 2022, the Ascent Center for Reproductive Health, in partnership with a Utah-based nonpartisan consulting group, conducted an age and geographically representative population-based survey of 1,200 Utahns to better understand individuals' knowledge, experiences, and attitudes around abortion and reproductive health. So I'm just going to go through some key findings from that survey. 52% of respondents believe that there should be no government involvement and that decisions about whether to have an abortion should be left up to a patient and their provider. Less than a quarter of respondents said that the state should determine these laws regarding abortion. Most Utahns believe that abortion should remain legal to some degree, with 23% indicating in all cases, 19% until viability, which was the Rose standard, and 19% indicating some earlier gestation with broad exemptions. 2/3 agree on, or strongly agree, that both physical and mental health exemptions are important in abortion policy. Finally, there was overwhelming support for state investment in other reproductive health care services. 3/4 of respondents agreeing or strongly agreeing that states that restrict abortion should invest in other services that expand contraceptive access, as well as prenatal care and postpartum coverage. The majority support held across counties, political, and religious identities. So these findings highlight the differences in what most Utahns think and want, and the abortion restrictions that we're seeing here in our state. Additionally, it highlights the support across the state for investment in broader reproductive health services and coverage. Local data, provider expertise and experience, and most importantly, the communities that are most impacted understand the importance of ensuring that individuals have access to the reproductive health services, including abortion care and comprehensive contraceptive coverage and resources to have healthy pregnancies. So that is a critical part of what we're seeing here, and I'm excited to have these data in hand and to inform the conversation more. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Candida, and although I work at Planned Parenthood today, I'm here representing myself as a woman of color, as a Black woman, as a Latinx woman, as a queer woman, as a mother, as a doula, and as a member of the Black Birth Workers Collective. And I'm here to share my story. So I had an abortion in 2014. I was 22, and it wasn't a difficult decision for me. I knew it right away that the best option for me was to have an abortion. I was poor, recent college graduate, struggling with my mental health, and this was not a good time for me in my life to become a parent. I was about 5 weeks pregnant when I called Planned Parenthood, but I had to wait 2.5 weeks for the next available appointment. And because Utah already has restrictive abortion laws, I had to go in for 2 appointments, one to confirm what I already knew, that I was pregnant and wanted an abortion, and another 3 days later to receive the medication that I needed. Having to wait 2.5 weeks for my appointment and then 3 more days to get the care that I needed really impacted my mental health. Thanks to public transportation, my friend who lent me the money for my abortion, and the ability to schedule the appointments during my lunch break, I was able to get the care that I needed. Having an abortion saved my life. I was able to work on my mental health, improve my living situation, and live a life that was right for me. 3 years later, I did become a mother. And this was a wanted pregnancy, and I was in a way better place in my life. I will forever be grateful that I got to choose when to become a parent, and that this is a decision that every person should be able to make for themselves. The same year that I became a mother, I also became a doula, and being able to support people through every outcome of pregnancy, whether that's birth, miscarriage, or abortion, has only solidified my support for abortion access. Restricting access to abortion care will not stop abortions. It will only disproportionately affect marginalized communities, which are my communities: Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian, Pacific Islander, and other people of color, people with low incomes, our LGBTQ+ communities, people with disabilities, and other communities who already have limited access to health care. I can't help but think about how HB 467 is going to negatively impact people who are living in a similar situation as I was back in 2014. If I were 22 now, there's no way that I could afford to go to a hospital or to travel out of state for my abortion. I didn't have a car, and I was barely making enough money to pay my rent. Having access to public transportation and a friend who let me borrow the money were what made my ability to access care possible. I know that my mental health would have plummeted, and I would not have had the capacity to get the help that I needed if I were to need an abortion today at 22. As someone who did experience postpartum depression after giving birth to my daughter, I can guarantee you that if I had been forced to continue a pregnancy at 22, that I would not have been okay. Postpartum depression is only one of the many postpartum mood disorders that exist, and when they're left untreated and unattended, they get worse, they worsen. So I don't want to imagine what my life would have been like if I had had to continue that pregnancy at 22. One thing I do know for sure is that I would not be the same mother that I am today to my 5-year-old daughter. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy Redford, and I've been asked to share a few words today as a mother, a storyteller, and a proud and active member of this community. I do not claim to have all of the answers or hold the only truth. I am certainly not perfect, and when I am, I'll hold you to that standard, so don't worry, I think you have some time. I moved my family to Utah permanently because I wanted my children to be in a place where difference of opinion can exist with dignity, where they can learn to keep their own moral value north expressed with respect. I also stand before you with the firm belief that each of us has the right to express our family values and culture of our homes, and you have the freedom and you have that right. I believe that you should be able to look at your children and say, we do not believe in abortion. I believe you have the right to determine according to your own system of belief when life begins. I, too, would like the freedom to express my feelings about the matter to my children and ask them to hold their values dear just like you do. Many of us share the belief in bodily autonomy. I believe that each of us get to make the decisions for our bodies that is aligned with what we want and need for our best lives, that's in accordance to our morals and our spiritual perspectives. Some feel that being vaccinated is a community responsibility. My children and I are vaccinated, but I would never come to your home and insist that my values are imposed on your body if that is something that you truly feel will bring you harm. I have deep roots in this state. The choices we are talking about today are difficult ones. I do not believe that anyone takes it lightly. I believe that we all love our kids, and we would do anything to protect them from pain, including all of you I stand before today. These are Utahns facing complex, personal decisions about their health and creating a climate where people are worried about getting essential care during pregnancy, to me, is tremendously sad. These are difficult times for everyone, and I fear that leaving families and individuals to travel hundreds of miles to receive health care for their needs will create more downstream consequences that none of us want to put individuals through. We strive to take care of each other, even others whose lives we might not relate to based on our lived experience. I believe that everyone cares about our fellow citizens, and then knowing that hospitals are not required to provide this care, and that families could be driving from place to place, putting their jobs at risk, trying to find someone to help them in a time of great anxiety, does not feel like the spirit of the place that I love. This seems to be in conflict with so many of you that I've met and stared in the eyes of. I can't imagine that instead of promoting policies that make essential health care more accessible, more affordable, and easier to manage, Utah lawmakers want to put more barriers between their constituents and the health care they need, many of whom have needed this care privately because they have privately determined that this is what is best for their well-being. I've imagined that it will take what it will be like for a young woman whose pregnancy would intensify the intimate partner violence she's already experienced, to the couple with a chronic condition that makes pregnancy dangerous to continue, to the marginalized teenager who realizes too late that she is pregnant and alone, a woman who has experienced miscarriage and needs care that will help her see her into a future healthy pregnancy. Hardworking families whose resources are limited and they want to responsibly care for the children that they have. I cannot claim to know what is best for any other individual. Again, at the heart of this concept is freedom. Decisions about family composition, when, whether, and how to start a family are some of the most deeply personal decisions we ever make. I believe we want to be in the service of people's dignity and humanity to make those decisions and to give healthcare providers the ability to serve them. We need experienced people and providers in the field, and for these cases not to be pushed to the already overworked emergency rooms. I guess the invitation is to pull back for the greater good, and a Utah that will continue to be an abundant and attractive place for further industry and for our great citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. I share your sentiments, and thank you all for being here today and giving me some time. My name's Emma Starchevich. I sit on the board of directors for Planned Parenthood of Utah. I'm also the mother to 2 young boys and the founder and CEO of Search Group Partners. Search Group Partners is a premier recruiting firm located here in Salt Lake City. Our clients include companies like Google, Tesla, Goldman Sachs, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I share with you my background to highlight that I'm an expert in my industry, specifically recruiting women into management and leadership positions. And I'll tell you what, the annual legislative session is making my job increasingly tough. If HB 467 becomes law, it would significantly hurt our ability to attract talent and grow jobs in our state. I pay close attention to what people outside of Utah think about us. I'm sure you all heard during the recent NBA All-Star game that Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley called Utah boring. And I'm okay with boring because, frankly, what I'm hearing from clients and prospective candidates these days is a lot worse. The main objections that my team hears when trying to relocate talented people into the state is that our culture is too repressive, that we are unwelcoming to women, and that we lack diversity. We hear things like, I'm not moving to Utah, or I can't raise my daughters there, or I'm not moving somewhere where politicians restrict the healthcare decisions I make with my doctor. The last thing we need yet is another stigma, like more restrictions on abortion access and affordability that will deter talent from Utah. My job is not only relocating talent to Utah, but also making sure that there are job opportunities for the people that were born and raised here. Just last night, I was speaking with an executive in the healthcare industry regarding this bill, and she said to me, Emma, for the first time, I'm looking for jobs outside of Utah. I don't want to move. I love it here. My family is here. But the word she uses, I'm mildly terrified about this bill and the direction things are going. Bills like HB 467 are dangerous, especially if you're a person who can get pregnant. They not only endanger the life and health of pregnant people here in Utah, which is bad enough, but they also endanger the future potential of our state. The population of Utah, which is slightly over 3 million people right now, is expected to reach 4 million in less than 9 years and 5 million by 2050. That's a lot of people that are going to need jobs. If major employers see what the Utah legislature is doing right now by advancing bills like HB 467, which restrict abortion access, or SB 16, which block parents from getting the health care they want for their own children, they're going to hesitate about moving their companies and their jobs to our state. These bad policies will cause companies to say, we can't attract the talent we need to fill these roles, or we can't expose our employees to these risks. So to me, this bill is personal. And it's not just about the devastating effects it would have on Utahns and our communities, but it's a bill that would hurt Utah's reputation, job growth, and I believe our overall economy. Utah Tech Leads, which promotes the interest of Utah's growing tech industry, conducted a survey recently of local companies about how Utah's new abortion restrictions may impact their workforce. 40% of Utah tech companies responded that they believe it will negatively impact their companies. An additional 20% are evaluating the potential impact to their workforce, with the biggest concern cited as the retention and recruitment of women to Utah and increasing cost of employee benefits. Listen, I get that abortion is a highly emotional subject and one that excites deeply held opinions. But something I've always loved about Utahns is that we respect people, even if they have different personal beliefs than us. We believe in privacy, autonomy, and free agency. We see people as brothers and sisters. We give people opportunity. We're not skin or religion deep, and I think that we know that we're more alike than unalike. Policies like HB 467 violate these values when lawmakers overstep their authority and expertise by restricting healthcare decisions and penalizing doctors for trying to help their patients. Passing it would be incongruent with our goals and values and threatens Utah's valuable reputation as an attractive place to live and work. Utah has been looked at nationally as a leader in business, and I look forward to continuing to work together to raise that bar on all fronts. This also means ensuring that reproductive rights remain a key pathway for economic opportunity in Utah, not stripping away our autonomy, privacy, and choice on if, when, where, with whom we want to start or grow our families, and forcing private companies, hospitals, into positions that they don't want to be in. I believe the path forward on this will require further collaboration and thoughtful discourse, not steamrolling controversial bills through the legislature and circumventing judicial process. Thank you.
My name is Brittany Nystrom, and I'm the Executive Director of the ACLU of Utah. The ACLU of Utah envisions a state where all persons can enjoy the civil rights and civil liberties promised to us in the U.S. and the Utah constitutions and laws. Like many of the speakers before me, the ACLU of Utah will always view healthcare as a fundamental right. The right to bodily autonomy is a deeply held and long recognized human and civil right. HB 467 is yet another attempt by politicians in Utah to erect barriers to receiving safe and critical abortion care. Every pregnancy and every family is different. We must acknowledge the complexities of medical decisions and listen to and respect patients' and families' decisions. The ACLU of Utah rejects restrictions like those in HB 467 that limit Utahns' ability to access medical care, including abortion care. Legislative attempts to significantly limit a person's reproductive freedom, including the right to decide if and when to become a parent, will be challenged by the ACLU of Utah. In fact, as many of you know, we are actively engaged in a legal challenge around the law that took effect last summer when the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. The message I want to leave you with, the message that was stated so eloquently by those who came before me, is simple. People, not politicians, should be free to make their own decisions about abortion care. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we thank our amazing speakers, and I want to open it up to questions, especially from the press. You can ask any of the speakers or Jason or myself.
Jason mentioned that you expect HB 467 would impact the ongoing litigation. I wonder if you could specify how you think it might impact the ongoing litigation and what parts of the bill would.
So HB 467 goes into the Utah code in the same code that the trigger ban affected. And so anytime you go into code and you change things, it definitely creates uncertainty about what happens with the existing litigation. So I think if I got a little bit more to say. Yeah, it's one of those unknowns about this bill, being 1,000 lines long, being a lot of complex issues at stake, and litigation is certainly one of those issues that will need to be worked out.
Are you considering the possibility of further litigation against some of the bills that are being presented this session?
You mean other bills besides this bill?
This or Representative Berkland's bill on victim services and maintenance?
You know, I think the Planned Parenthood and other organizations keep all options on the table. These bills have not been finalized yet, and so we wait and see exactly what gets passed by the legislature, and then we go and we do a very fine-tooth comb look at what it does to abortion access or any other impact on healthcare or rights here in Utah to determine what our next steps might be.
just to the question of future challenges, it's no secret that the ACLU of Utah and others in the room today are always looking out for possible constitutional violations that are embedded in the laws that come out of this body. So we will be taking a close look at laws that restrict rights and freedoms of individuals and making decisions on whether to continue those challenges in court.
Great. Anyone else?
Yeah, if HB 467 passes, how does this immediately impact the care that Planned Parenthood could provide, being the leading actor for abortion care in the state?
I think I have to agree with Jason to see what the final bill says, as it is still, there's an amended version that is going to be considered by the Senate very soon. That will have to go back to the House. I think we are looking at that pretty deeply with many of our attorneys to figure out the impact, but we anticipate that, we know the goal of the sponsors is to close down abortion clinics in the state and to put abortion out of reach for as many Utahns as possible. And preventing abortion clinics from functioning will do just that, right?
I think one thing I might add, though, and has been mentioned up here, was that abortions are one thing that Planned Parenthood does, but we provide a wide range of reproductive and sexual health care that will continue across this state in our 8 health centers. And so that's very important for people to know, that this bill is specifically about abortion, but Planned Parenthood does so much more for people in this state in terms of the health care they need, and that will continue.
Emily?
Representative Lisenby has repeatedly said that abortion clinics could reapply for a different kind of license from the state. What kind of barriers do you see there for Planned Parenthood reapplying to provide abortions under another license?
So, we realize that the clear goal of this bill is to put abortion out of reach of as many Utahns as possible. And so, right now, we don't have a shortage, we don't have an issue, people can access this care. The bill makes changes that really, put abortion out of reach of many people in the state in its current version. So, ostensibly allowing some clinics to offer, be viewed as hospital and offer these services doesn't change the fact that it's going to cause additional restrictions. And a lot of that still needs to be worked out.
Anything else? Yeah.
On the physician front, I know that Utah has a shortage of OBGYNs. How do you think this bill would impact essentially recruiting more healthcare providers in that field?
I have some colleagues from the university. I don't know to the extent you can answer that question. I've certainly heard that it's going to make recruiting more challenging because they won't be able to fully practice medicine without being limited by state law and policy. So there's concern among people about coming here to practice medicine, especially obstetrics and gynecology. And I think the same goes for people coming to be trained, right, in residency programs. So we would anticipate that there would be challenges in recruiting people, and we have heard that from some of our university colleagues. We just don't have hard data to back it up.
And I can share one more piece. So I'm speaking on behalf of myself and not the university, but we do know that training in miscarriage management and abortion care is an essential part of an OBGYN residency program, and so we know there's a commitment to maintain our ability to train OBG residents here, and that's something that I think is to be seen how that plays out. And then certainly in the interviewing process for residents, we know that anecdotally this is impacting people's decisions to train here or to stay here to work. And we are actively collecting data on that, and so we will understand a bit more about the fallout, both locally and nationally, I think, in the near future.
Thanks. Any other questions?
I might add to that. I am a maternity nurse for 11 years. I've taken care of many women that have had abortions, miscarriages, etc. First, it's very scary, as other healthcare workers have said, like when people start managing how
stressed out, burnt out, overworked. All of my nurses are like, nurse friends are quitting, leaving, short-staffed. I'm wondering if anybody can speak on the legislators' decision or what their plan is on this extra burden to an already stressed out hospital system that is not working that well currently.
I think we at Planned Parenthood also understand the challenges faced in staffing healthcare and the burdens put on our system. I think our legislators' goals are to limit the amount of abortion in Utah, and hence, assigning hospitals this additional task is with the knowledge that it will be very difficult for them to provide. And that I think this is part of a larger national effort, right, by anti-abortion extremists to really limit access for people in states where that's possible. And we need to all be engaged in this fight, and Planned Parenthood will stay engaged, as will the Reproductive Roundtable, in letting the will of the people be known on this issue, right? Because we have a mismatch here between the policymakers and the public. And you heard some of that from some of the data that was collected. But we will continue to push back against these harsh and cruel bills and restrictions on abortion care.
I think this one's probably for Jasmine. You mentioned that under Elizabeth's bill that only physicians would be able to provide this kind of medical care for those seeking abortions. As of now, who is allowed in the medical field to prescribe somebody an abortion pill?
The challenge being that the pill is not only used for abortions. It's used in the case of miscarriage, and it can also be used in the case of some procedures of which we perform in the gynecology aspect. I cannot 100% speak to, because we don't have a final bill, what that will do, but currently it does read specifically physicians. So that would limit to our physician colleagues. As far as currently for the use of gynecological care, miscarriage management, any licensed health practitioner. So those are your nurse practitioners, your physician assistants, your physicians, and your certified licensed nurse midwives.
And I would say the doctor has to be in a hospital to provide the medication abortion. So again, these bills are confusing, and that's part of the purpose, right? Is to make it hard to understand how and where to get the care. And so I think your question's an important one. Anything else? Well, we were able to wrap it up on time then. We are going to be here after, as well as the people who spoke today. We thank you for coming, and that concludes our press conference.